Iran has begun military exercises in southern Iran this morning. The maneuvers by ground forces are the latest show of force after threats to close the strategic Strait of Hormuz in retaliation for tougher economic sanctions. 1/5 of the world's crude oil passes through the strait. Additional naval exercises are planned for later this morning off southern Iran. Meanwhile, tensions are increasing between Iran, Israel, and the U.S. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah al-Khamenei, said yesterday that Israel, quote, is a cancerous tumor that should be cut. He also warned the U.S. will suffer defeat if it tries to use military force to stop Iran's nuclear program. Joining us from our Washington bureau is national security analyst Juan Zarate. Juan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nancy.
So what does all this stepped up rhetoric mean, and the fact that they're now conducting these exercises in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, Nancy, it certainly feels like the war drums are beating louder and faster than ever before. But we've seen waves of this in the past. But I think what you see that's different this time is not only the rhetoric being heated up, both from Israel and Iran, but also the fact that there's a sense of urgency growing in Israel that they need to act sooner rather than later. There's a sense as well that the sanctions and the sabotage have been underway against Iran's economy and nuclear infrastructure has been effective, but it really hasn't stopped Iran's march toward a nuclear program. And so there's a growing sense of urgency, and I think that's why you've seen the rhetoric heat up this past month.
And so this week we heard Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta predict that Israel might strike Iran in May, June, or July. Why so specific? Why those particular months?
Well, I think in Israel there's been an ongoing debate about whether or not to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Certainly, Israel sees an Iranian nuclear power and program as an existential threat, as one that threatens the very survival of the state. But there's been a debate as to whether or not to strike and, frankly, when to strike. And I think the growing consensus, at least what we've heard from Ehud Barak, the defense minister in Israel, is that they have to strike sooner rather than later before the Iranians can insulate their program from any types of aerial bombardment from the Israelis. And so that's why you've seen a sense, and what Secretary Panetta said, that this could come sooner rather than later.
Got it. Juan Zarate in our Washington bureau this morning. Thank you so much.